Hey, what's going on, guys? Zedd here, bringing you another Soul Calibur 6 video. And today is the long-awaited, updated tier list bars. At the time of this video, we don't know for sure whether or not Soul Calibur is or is not getting a Season 3 or some sort of other update. Let's hope that statement does not age well at all. So this could theoretically be the last tier list of the game, but it is most certainly going to be the last tier list of Season 2, as what that means is Season 2 is over, and I am super confident in all of these placements, and even if the game is updated further, I don't know if I would really change much, unless anything dramatic really happened. Now, just before I get into it, I want to say very clearly, every single character in Soul Calibur 6 is tournament viable and can win a tournament. Okay? I'm saying that right now, on the record. I don't want to hear no nonsense about saying the people in B tier are unplayable, because that is a load of baloney, which you'll see. Okay, good. We're all on the same page. Furthermore, I'm going to explain these tiers a little bit so you can understand what's going on here. So again, we have S, A+, A, B+, and B. So you can see that the disparity between the tiers is not actually as much as you might think it is. And with that said too, they are divided in a way that I've given them brackets. It's to help you guys understand why they are where they are, and it's to help me get a better gauge of where they are. So for S, strong, consistent, these are picks that are just really, really good right now. This does not mean they are necessarily without weakness, and you'll see that like every single character in the game has strengths and weaknesses, and that's the beauty of this game. So S tier is not broken; they're just strong, solid picks. A+ is great minor issues. These characters are really, really solid, but there are small things that hold them back from being super consistent or strong. A is very similar, it's just their issues are maybe more impactful. B+ is where it starts getting a bit different, so inconsistent or lacking. Inconsistent means that their gameplay is very hit or miss, or like super matchup dependent, like their matchup charts are very high and low. What that means is they dumpster some matchups but get dumpstered in others, or in some cases their gameplay is just very inconsistent. And lacking would imply lacking tools or lacking power in different areas of their kit. And lastly, we have B tier, power crept or weak. For those who maybe don't know what power creep is, it's something that happens in a lot of games, particularly if you look at MOBAs like League of Legends or even Tekken 7. What happens is characters are released that do what other characters do, just better. And so there are very few cases of that in Soul Calibur, but there are a couple that we'll talk about. And then weak is simply is exactly that. What the character does works, it's just not super strong. It could be effective, it's just not super strong. Okay, I want to make that clear. Like, the gameplay is fine, you can play the character. It's just, it's going to be a bit harder to get those W's compared to characters above. First up, we have Cervantes. Alright, let me get Inferno to the bottom there. Okay. So Cervantes is a super strong character. He essentially has... He's the king of neutral, essentially. He has one of the best movements in the game in all directions, both sideways and backwards. His range is incredible. He has super strong space control, safe, strong space control buttons, such as A6. That's usually the go-to one people talk about with this character. His whiff punishment is also incredible with moves like IGDR, which is his 2-1-4B, and then his 3B plus K as well, which is one of the moves he got in Season 2. Super cool, super effective, and it's sort of the easy mode version of IGDR, but there is a reason to use one over the other. His pokes are also incredibly good. One of his best lows is K2. This low is super irritating, it's super fast, and I'm pretty sure it's -2 on hit, and because of the way Cervantes is designed, in some matchups, he can actually just backstep after that and completely make you miss. His 3K is a super underrated button, or maybe it's not, but I don't hear anyone talk about it. His 3K is dumb. It basically has super low block stun and 0 pushback, and because of that, on both hit and block, he can be really cheeky and do 3K into A6 into, like, even on block, his 3K, the Survey player still has control of the situation, which is so nutty and frustrating. He does incredibly good damage. His soul charge, albeit not the strongest in the game, is definitely consistent. It's definitely worth using. But also, given the design of the character, even just the pushback from the soul charge is really all he needs, right, to reset that spacing. His CE is a pretty standard CE, although it is fast and it goes like across the screen. It's sort of a teleport. No, it's a dash. Excuse me. It's not a teleport. And so because of that, you can whiff punish with it a lot easier than some other CEs. Other than that, he's just super consistent now, which is funny because for those who maybe only got in on Season 2, Cervantes was bottom of the barrel tier list in Season 1, and the reason why is he was the most buggy character in the entire game. He could not do any combos with any form of consistency. It was a complete disaster. And so it's funny how he's come from all the way. Super good character. Again, whiff punishment, defense, movement, neutral, footsies. If these are all things that you find interesting, Cervantes is the man for you. So next up we have Hilde. Hilde encompasses a lot of the things we just talked about with Cervantes, so I'll kind of gloss over them. But she has incredibly strong horizontal and vertical space control, incredible movement, one of the best backsteps in the game. Her pokes are super good. She can be played ridiculously safe. Like, she genuinely rivals characters like Amy, Xianghua, Cassandra in terms of playing safe, which for a character that is as well-rounded and strong as Hilde is crazy. Hilde, while she does rely on somewhat slower, bigger launchers to get any meaningful, I guess, life lead, the thing with Hilde is she's always having that charge A5 on deck, which is a tech crouching safe horizontal mid, and on counter hit it wall splats and ring outs. So in some matchups, that move alone is completely risk-free and completely shuts down a huge chunk of a character's kit. And by that I mean if a character relies heavily on high attacks, Hilde is she's just laughing because that move is going to be free against those kinds of characters. The damage she does deal when she hits those somewhat slower launchers is incredibly high. That's not even talking about her regalia. Her sword regalia, her sort of special unique feature, adds significant damage to either combos or punishes. For example, her 3KA when she has red sword or sword regalia does ludicrous damage for a 914 punish, and you can even combo into it on CA6 counter hit. It's just, oh, she really has it all. The biggest thing that is that the reason why she's not above Cervi, since like they're so similar, is there is a little bit of a problem where if she's charging the A or the B, she of course doesn't have access to the A or the B moves. So in that sense, you are somewhat mitigating access to your kit. With that said, though, she does have incredible kicks. And these kicks, in particular when you're charging A, can make up the fact that you're charging A, given that she has 2 I-14 kicks, an I-12 kicks, you can still punish, and then she still has a horizontal mid kick as well. So Hilde's a great choice, just a little less, I guess, consistent and accessible as Cervi, as she does use a charge mechanic. But honestly, I'm not going to say Cervi's better than Hilde. I think they're pretty well on par with each other. And if you don't think Hilde is that strong, then you probably haven't fought a really good Hilde or haven't explored the character much, because I think she's super slept on, particularly in the other regions. I know that, for example, in the East or the Asian regions, they actually put her like mid-tier or lower. And I'm going, okay. Let's have a discussion. So, anywho, that's Hilde. Really strong character. Punishment, movement, pokes, spacing. She really has the whole package. Her meter gain is ridiculous, by the way, with her regalias prepped. And then her use of meter in both Soul Charge and CE is also very good as well. So, real strong character. Next I have Yoshi. So Yoshi is a character that I feel like no one's talking about anymore. Which is hilarious, given that he's so strong. Yoshi does have a little bit of a range deficit for sure. That's not arguable. And when he does go for his mix-ups, there is a form of innate risk. However, Yoshimitsu has incredible speed, combo conversion potential. His ring out game is crazy. His wall game is really good. His pokes are really good. He's one of the only characters in the game that has a hell sweep with his full crouch 3K. So it's a knockdown into extension into pressure. And so that low is always on deck and ready to go. And even though on paper you would think, oh, this is reactable, it's frankly not. It's a very subtle animation, and it would take a hell of a lot of practice to be able to consistently block that. I just don't see that ever being realistic. And so Yoshi's crazy. He has horizontal mids, as far as the eye can see, access to plus frames if he so desires. He has can string mix-ups. He has regular mix-ups. His Oki's really strong. His soul charge, a little more one-trick pony than some other ones, but what it does let him do is access his brave edges or his meter burn moves for free, air quotes. And then when he's in Dragonfly, he does gain access to a mix-up. However, with that said, that mix-up can be resist impacted with a little bit of practice, so not quite as strong as some other soul charges on the market. But he's using his meter mostly for soul attack setups and then his meter burn moves anyway, so it's not the end of the world. But he's just a really complete character. He has so many tools to work with too, so he is awesome for players who want to get creative, whereas you can't really say that about the two characters above Yoshi, Hilde and Cervi, as they're a little more one-dimensional. Yeah, no, Yoshi frankly has it all. He just keeps getting buffs and buffs and buffs in his neutral game. And then they're toning down the stuff that's a little ridiculous, which is a good thing. So yeah, don't feel bad about playing Yoshi. This character is insane. I don't know why people aren't talking about him. He does everything really well, and then he has that flexibility. You may or may not have heard the Soul Calibur meme that Yoshi players eat glue, and this is because Yoshi just has so much nonsense, but it's viable nonsense. Like, he is the strongest, trolliest character ever. Like, he's not a troll character, but he's just so good and crazy, and that's what makes him so difficult to deal with. He is a little weak to backstep, but he has tools to completely shut you down for trying to do that. So super strong, super consistent pick. You can't go wrong with Yoshi right now. Next I have Raph. You know, a lot of people might say that he should actually be lower now since the system changes to verticals when Hwang came out. That's just not true. That's just not true. Raph traditionally has weaker horizontals, yes. But when people tell me that he has weak horizontals, they're the same people who are telling me moves like 6A or 6-6A or 4A or 3A, and I'm like, bruh, he literally has a 3A, which has a lethal hit. I know it's punishable, but it has a lethal hit. His 1K is one of the best lows in the game. And then he has 4-4-AB, which is a horizontal mid, granted it's a bit slow, into a jailing vertical, and that leads into prep pressure. So, like, yeah, sure, his horizontals may be a bit, sorry, I'm stumbling on my words here. His horizontals are a bit silly, and not very strong, but he does have the strong ones to make up for it. With that said, in Soul Charge, his horizontals become incredibly strong, and he doesn't even frankly need the horizontals. So, the reason why Raph is so strong, I just wanted to get that out of the way, the horizontal argument, is his punishment is top tier. 100%, like, this is the punish character, frankly. And the reason why is he has lethal hits that lethal hit against a whiffed horizontal, a whiffed vertical, and a whiffed kick. And this is 4-6 A, B, and K respectively. And all of those moves are crazy good. His range is crazy good. He has the farthest reaching 10 frame in the game with 6B, which can again lead into stance pressure. He has his 6-6 B plus K, which is an incredibly powerful move on both hit and block. On block, you just have to hold that, and on hit, it leads to a full combo. His soul charge is incredibly good. If you haven't seen this dude's ring out carry, or I guess just carry in general in soul charge, I highly recommend you try to find it on Twitter or Reddit or something. This character, if you guys don't know, Hwang's stage is like the largest open stage in the game. From mid-screen, Raphael can ring out in soul charge. it's ridiculous, actually. He has a safe on block CE, so if you try to punish something on a whiff and you're a little bit slow, no big deal. He has a very unique reversal edge game. He can reversal edge from stance. This is pretty unique. And it doesn't even lead to the reversal edge minigame, so it's an even better version of RE, frankly. His stances, while they do have counterplay, they are very good, and they do require a lot of lab work to really flesh out and understand. And so in most situations, you'll be able to play him very offensively, but against a knowledgeable opponent, you will have to sort of hold your punches back a little bit. Raph is great for people who want a very technical character. He's relatively difficult to play in terms of execution by Soul Calibur standards, and he's very, very rewarding. Like, this character, people who play Raph are just good at the game, typically, if they have success with the character, because this character does not carry the player, by no means. He's not easy to play, he is a ton of fun to play, and I highly suggest him if you want like a super strong, consistent pick. This character has been, like, it doesn't matter, you know, if you think he should be lower, this character has been top tier since the beginning, which is awesome, right? So he really has it all, defensively speaking, and he has an offense to speak of. He has evasive tools, good guard damage, great pokes, amazing punishment, a 10-frame vertical, which is like, hello? Yeah, Raph really has it all. Next up, and this one's probably a bit of a debate, and I'm going to explain why. Next up, we have Talim, and this actually rounds out our S tier. So Talim, hold on, you keyboard warriors. I'm not putting Talim here for her stances. Let's make that very clear right off the bat, okay? This has nothing to do with Talim's stances. And I'm going to say that one more time. This has nothing to do with Talim's stances. Cool. It has nothing to do with a mix-up game. That's all just icing on the cake for me. That does not make her S tier strong and consistent. What makes Talim consistent, I said this, so Talim got a plethora of changes when Hwang was released. It was either then or right before, I can't remember. And everyone only talked about Wind Bearer. Oh, what are these new moves? What's this new mechanic? Oh my god, Talim buffs. But everyone slept on basically everything else. And I said week 1, after those changes, I was like, this character is fucking ridiculous. People are just going to have to wait. And, excuse me, people are going to have to wait and figure it out. And this character is going to be dumb. And surely enough, here we are. Some key Talim players are now being like, whoa, wait, she has all this new shit now that's really strong and all these new ways I can do things. Let's talk about why she's so strong now. Okay, so the first and most important thing is her movement speed forward. If anyone tells you that Talim struggles to get in, I think they are high, or they haven't really tried to play the character themselves. Talim's forward movement speed is by far the fastest in the game. She's a Formula 1 speed racer on feet, and she is just lightning fast. And so when you're playing against characters like, let's just say, you know, Ivy, for example, right? And you block one of her zoning keep-out moves, it is minus on block. Traditionally, like, let's just say you're -8, or that she's -8. You can go zoom forward for those 8 frames or so, to the best of your ability, and then block, and then you might have to block something else, or maybe prep a break on the throw, but the point is you're in, like, whereas you can't do that with other characters. You would have to, like, walk forward a little bit, block another move, walk forward a little bit, block. Now you might be in, but you might just be shoved out again, whereas Talim, it's like, boom, you're in. And it's crazy. It's so fast, and I see so many Talim players, just in general, at all ranks, they're trying to go in with her 6-6A and 6-6B. No. Stop it. Go in with movement. When you move forward in Soul Calibur, you can just block instantly. So, Talim players just need to recognize that you move forward and block, and oh my god, not a single character in the game is going to be able to keep you out. Okay? Next point. Her counter hit game and damage output. Oh my god. This character has access to so much freaking damage off of basically any stray hit that she will never struggle to win a round because of damage. Like, she'll never struggle to make a comeback if it comes to damage output. This character hits for, pretty sure off of a counter hit 4B, I think it's 84. It's 80 something. It's about 80 damage meterless off of a very good counter hit move. It's ridiculous. Her 6BK is a relatively brain dead button. It is steppable, but that leads to like, it's over 35 damage. I can't remember the exact number, but on hit it leads to a back turn mix. And it's so good. The range is incredible. Her A6, while it is a double high string, it's a jailing string. 0 on block. Tech jumping horizontal high. That move is crazy. Everyone's sleeping on it, including Talim players. Please use it. A6. And just furthermore, the vertical system changes made it so that her stance transitions into Wind Charmer, her side swiss, actually dodge things. And then they buffed it again to make it so it actually avoids CEs, which, just for clarity, what would happen is because of the freeze frame on vertical edges, they would realign, and so it would clip Talim, and so it would make it not work. But now it does. And so characters, even Xianghua, who has the fastest critical edge in the game, she used to be able to just critical edge Talim out of basically every single stance transition in the game. She can't do that at all. Like, at all. Wind Charmer, except for 2, avoids every single CE I try to throw out. So she is so strong. Her counter hit game, her defensive game, her punishment, like, you want to play her as a counter hit based character. I promise. And then when you land those counter hits, that's when you pressure on the Yoki. That's when you pressure with your, like, she has relatively high guard damage for a character as quick as she is. And you want to take those offense in bursts. I see way too many Talim players trying to play her like a stance-based mix-up character. It ain't going to work, okay? Her stances aren't that good. Rather, they're good, but they're not good enough to do it, to play her like that. You need to be using her counter hits. You need to be using her strong strings. This character's crazy. I could go on for a while. I probably spent too long on it already. Sorry about that. Let's just move on. If you disagree, like, I'm telling you, this character is insane right now. And her soul charge. Oh god, let me touch on her soul charge. Her soul charge is so much damage off of every stray hit. There are some built-in mix-ups in her soul charge, albeit not super, rewarding for their risk. But her guard damage is nuts. Her pressure is nuts. She has access to so many plus frames and soul charge to just keep running her game. Her reversal edge cancels are, while they do cost meter, are very, very good. And her critical edge as well is very, very good. Like, this character's meter use is top of the line. Like, of these 5 characters so far, she uses meter in all critical edge, soul attack, and soul charge the best out of every character in the game. I don't even I don't doubt that at all. That her use of meter is by far the strongest in the game. You would never feel bad about using any of the options as Talim. Okay, cool. Next, we have Nightmare. At first, I actually had Nightmare up here in the S tier on my old tier list because I said he was perfect for the meta. And while that tier list does have a lot of things that I still believe, I kind of overestimated how valuable the vertical changes would be. Or rather, how meta-defining they would become. So, Nightmare, right at the top of A-, great and minor issues. So, in the case of Nightmare, at this point, most of us know why he's fairly strong. But of course, his biggest shortcoming is how punishable he is without Night Terror Charge, right? He is punishable on a lot of his key moves that he wants to use, or in the case of, like, certain strings or stances, you can just jab him out of it, and there's nothing he can do about it. But the thing is, Nightmare players use his stances way too much. You frankly want to play him very space control and almost like keep out. He has awesome tools to just shove you away constantly and look for punishes on run counter or even counter hits. He really wants to try to get a Night Terror Charge prepped and ready to go, and then so many Nightmares, they just burn it right away on like Drill or a stance A plus B move. But if you sit on the Night Terror Charge, it's arguably more threatening because the opponent never gets to make a mistake. It's incredibly powerful. His Soul Charge state is crazy because he always has Night Terror Charge, and then he retains, a Night Terror Charge after his Soul Charge ends. So what that means is he just has inherent value in the soul charge, even if he doesn't attack once. This is something that, like, I know it's very minor, but it is something that is strong. Like, your soul charge is never ever wasted on Nightmare, and I think that that's important. His soul attack is very good and one of the better ones in the game, given its range and combo potential, and in some cases I believe it does tech trap. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure. And then his CE, while very unique, is very strong. Having an armor move as a CE means you can interrupt strings, pressure sequences, stances, even just calls people out with it. It's such a good tool that only very few characters have on their critical edge, or even at all. He's very good. His post-GI game is nutty. His ring-out game is nutty. His carry in soul charge is nutty. He's very, very, like, wow. Like, there's just a lot going on the screen when Nightmare's in charge. Like, his combos are high, his long, his damage is high, his ring-out potential is high, his wall game is good. His neutral is strong. It's very strong neutral. And his 3K is a great button. Even though he doesn't have a standing I-12, he doesn't necessarily need it, like, and that's because of his armor moves, more or less. Yeah, he's just really strong, but his issues of course come in the form of being punishable, and so you have to play a very clean Nightmare in order to really make him shine. Otherwise you're going to feel like, yeah, this character sucks, which is interesting, right? So he's not for everybody. He does have a little bit of execution behind him with his just frame slide inputs with AGA and ABA, or whatever they are. Yeah, very polarizing, very, very strong, just powerful character right now, but be aware that you are punishable. Next, Tira. So people would say that Tira might even want to be, wow. People might say that Tira should be higher. I don't agree. Really, the minor issues that Tira has is holistically in Jolly, in my opinion. Well, almost holistically in Jolly. Jolly kind of holds his character back. Now, let me go on the record and say I actually prefer Jolly Tira over Gloomy Tira as just a playstyle preference and a character design preference. I think it's more fun. I think it's very cool. Like, Jolly Tira is all about stagger pressure, pokes, keeping you away, creating space, and really trying to capitalize on those whiffs. Lumi is a much more aggressive style who wants to try to force you into situations, run counter you with her 6A or 3A. Her damage is incredibly high in Gloomy. But problem with Gloomy is she does end up taking self-harm damage, which can add up over time, and she does gain very lackluster meter, and that's pretty unfortunate. Her Gloomy Coda state, or her Gloomy in Soul Charge, in other words, is very powerful with a unbreakable throw, albeit steppable. If you don't know that, Tira's Gloomy throw is sidesteppable. However, Gloomy has incredible step catchers to sort of loop in with that, and then when you start ducking, she has an incredible 3B that has a follow-up. So Gloomy Coda can play a very straightforward throw 3A, 3B game, and it's highly effective, believe it or not. Jolly Tira, though, is kind of what holds her back. Jolly Tira does no damage. Like, even when you CE someone off of a launcher, it's pretty ho-hum. Tira's lethal hits in general are very specific, and the opponent always knows when a lethal hit is ready to go. And because of that fact, she can sometimes not have access to heavy damage at all without critical edge. Her meter use is incredibly good, though. Her CE is great range. The Jolly one gives it a swap to Gloomy. The Gloomy one does ridiculous damage into a force block situation, which is pretty unique for critical edges. Her soul attack can lead into a complete mix-up and a mood swap, or like one or more mood swaps off of one move, which is incredible. And then, of course, soul charging with Tira recreates that neutral space. So she has one of the best movement speeds in the game and dash distances. She has some of the best space control buttons in the game. Just the reason why she's not higher on the list is Jolly is so weak, so punishable by most of the cast, like minus 12 to 16 on like every button ever, other than basically 6B. And 6B stagger is a little bit of a gimmick. I say a little bit because while it is an effective strategy, it only gets you so far, right? Doing 6BB or 6BK or 6B into 6B or 6B throw, those only go so far, okay? Especially when you consider that the 6BB is reactable in terms of sidestep or GI, and the 6BK is -8 on block, right? So the risk reward isn't really there for Tira to keep pressuring like that, so she's better off poking around. Her poke damage is incredibly low in Jolly, and the risk is high. It's very high. Like, a lot of her pokes are very punishable. So I don't misunderstand though. She is a strong character. She's a ton of fun to play. A very flexible character too. Just note that you do have to learn two slightly different playstyles and slightly different moves lists, but it's not so bad once you kind of understand the base kit of what Tira wants to do. Yeah, really good character. Nothing super game-changing in terms of issues, but yeah, Jolly, very punishable and weak in terms of damage. Gloomy gains basically nothing for meter and does have self-harm damage, which can add up over time. Amy has been good again since her inception. People might, like, Amy mains might say she's lower. I think that's a load of crap. She's still a very just well-rounded character. She's very flexible. She's very safe. Her whiff punishment's great. Her offense is great. Her parries are great. And her soul charge is crazy when she has red roses. Now, her 3A on counter hit did get nerfed in that 3A counter hit used to set up a 1B, 3B mix-up because you couldn't step them. This is not the case anymore. However, her 3A is still one of the best 3As in the game, in my opinion, due to its speed, safety, and tech crouch properties. So she still has great tools. Her 4AA as well, being minus on hit and dealing less damage, that's a pretty reasonable nerf given the range and the speed of 4AA in red. But she still has great lows. She has great pressure. She has mix-up. And again, when she has red roses online, oof, her damage goes through the roof. Again, super safe too. She can sort of just fish for things, which is so strong. Her issues come from roseless Amy, though. Not a very strong character, in my opinion. Like, she still has that safety and mix-up, right? But the reward is pretty cheeks. And the damage output is not good. So if you're fighting Amy, if you can go up 2 rounds, so she's on match point, before she has any sort of perception online, like red rose or white rose, oh my gosh, you are in control. But if an Amy gets all 4 roses in the first round, you know, you're kind of fighting a little bit of an uphill battle in most situations. With that said, she's not unbeatable. If you play characters that have heavy pushback, that can be a problem for her. Her range is very low, and in order for her to get in, she has to put herself in harm's way. Things like 2-2B are a great move. However, keep in mind that she is thrusting herself forward, which means the moment someone steps that, it's a free whiff punish, right? So yeah, she's not without her issues, but they're very kind of minor inconveniences or matchup things, and every character has matchup problems, right? So super good character. If anyone says otherwise, I don't know what they're doing. They're downplaying as hell. Speaking of downplaying, Xianghua. So, Xianghua is an interesting one, right? She is a character who... I don't know. At this point, I don't know if they're trolling, but Xianghua players will say that she's bad. And I'm like, I think you're crazy as shit. But at the same time, people who don't play Xianghua say that she's busted. She's a very, like, highly discussed character in the community in terms of her power level. I think both sides are completely wrong. She's not busted, and she is strong. The people who say she's busted talk about things like her 2-2B, her full crouch 3B, and her CE. And that's it. That's the end of the story. That's all they have to say. And it's like, well, you know, yeah, sure, we have a good CE, but we have a good CE because our punishment... And so getting into the minor issues with X first. Her punishment game without CE is a joke. Like, the damage is a joke. And in many cases... due to pushback or range and spacing, she actually can't punish a lot of moves in the game that are punishable. And in some matchups, this is more prevalent than others. For example, Astaroth. But against all characters, this is true, and it's very frustrating. So her punishment damage sucks without CE, and her soul charge, frankly, sucks for what it is. Like, you can use it and definitely take advantage of it, but was it worth the bar? No, not really. Not unless you already had 2 bars. It's a very situational tool to use. And her soul attack is very weird and finicky. It used to be super useful, now it's not so useful. So, yeah, the reason why her CE is so strong is her punishment is garbage without it. With that said, would I like to see some nerfs to it actually? Yeah, even though I am an X main. I think that the Oki that she gets off the CE is a little ridiculous, especially if you compare it like just even to Tira and Amy. Tira gets a force block, but that's it. Like, there's no low mix-up, right? There's no way you can get relaunched for your whole health bar. Amy, she gets pressure off of her CE, but only when she's in red, I believe. But X is one of the only characters who gets full-on pressure. Like, you're in a low-mid situation, or you don't even want to stay down either after her CE for 75 damage at 12 frames. Yeah, okay. I could see the Oki being nerfed, or even have the character end further away from Xianghua, so she couldn't use things like her 6B and 3A. I think that would be reasonable, and that would be fine with me. Other than that, though, she's in a great spot. Like, she is very susceptible to strong backstep characters, oh my lord. So that's her other biggest issue. So her punishment and her weakness to backstep. Huge. Other than that, though, she has it all. Very annoying poke lows, very annoying safe pokes. You basically can't punish this character. Her stance game, albeit gimmicky if players don't know about it, is still useful even if players know how to deal with it. She does have 2TB. Her Oki game is great. Her throw game is pretty good as well. She does have a command throw in the backwards direction, and it also uniquely restores her guard gauge, which is actually super useful in some matchups. Seong Mi-na 2B, to name a few. And yeah, she really has everything. The only thing is, yeah, she's a bit weak to backstep characters, and her punishment outside of CE is a dumpster fire. And her range, while lacking, is still serviceable. Her neutral is fine for what she has access to. Yeah, she's a great character. I don't know why people would say that she's bad. I think you're living under a rock if that's true. Plus, if it's any consolation, from coast to coast in NA, you know, most of us who are doing really well are tending to play Xianghua. Not most of us. That I shouldn't say that. But there are, like, at the time of this video anyway, Incendiate, Setsuka, and myself, 3 prominent X players who are all doing really well across the region. So, like, yeah, we're good players, but, you know, the character is strong, right? The character is strong. So, yeah, great character, can't go wrong, but no, she is not busted. If you don't know how to handle 2TB, that's a conversation for another time. Cassandra. This character is another character who I think people just aren't talking about right now, and I think that's fair, actually. I think it's fair. She's a little under the radar. No one really plays her anymore. No one ever competes with this character, like, ever. I know there's like one who participates in the NLBC. I think his name is Ray, but I think he also plays Ivy. So I'm not sure how much play she's seeing over on the East, but on the West, nobody plays this character at all. But she's good. The thing with Cassandra is, and her minor issues are, she is a little susceptible to step. Now, I say a little susceptible to step because she does have step catchers and they are safe. However, their reward is pretty cheeks, right? You can kind of step against Cassandra all day and not feel super upset about it, especially given that her horizontal lows aren't super good, even though she does have incredibly strong lows, such as 1B and 1K. Those are just 2 of the best lows in the game, but they are verticals, so that does kind of suck for her. Her damage output is pretty standard without Divine Force and Soul Charge, but with Divine Force, it's incredible, and with Divine Force Soul Charge, it's nutty. She just has plus frames upon plus frames upon plus frames. I think at last count, without Soul Charge, she has 8 forms of 0 or +2. I think that's just going off of memory, but she like standard, just to put that in perspective for you guys, most characters have like 1 or 2 ways to get plus frames, and one of them is a break attack. Whereas Cassandra just has straight up strings that go into plus frames or plus on hit situations in the case of 1K. So yeah, she's a really annoying character. She can be played very aggressively. Her backstep though does leave a lot to be desired. With that said, it doesn't really go in her game plan or kit design to even go backwards, so it does kind of make sense why her backstep's a bit on the poor side. Her grab game is probably the best in the game, and by that I mean she has command throws in both directions. She has great mids to keep that in check, whereas a character like Astaroth, which we'll get to, can have a little bit of a harder time enforcing his throw game, whereas Cassandra has no trouble at all. And one of them gives her a Divine Force stack, and the other one just does really good damage. So, and she has a crouch throw too. I forgot to mention that with X, Xianghua has the fastest crouch throw in the game at 10 frames. Very useful. Cassandra also has one, Nightmare has one, and then Astaroth has one. Those are the only 4 characters who have them. Cassandra is fast, she hits hard, her guard damage is pretty good, her combos are really nice if you like flashy combos. Plus frames upon plus frames, but a little weak to sidestep, but overall a very safe character to play. Super good, just very, very unrepresented and relatively slept on. But don't misunderstand, she's a pretty solid character. And that rounds out our A+. So this is my top 10. And I'm very confident in this. Sure, you could rearrange the order, whatever. But in terms of where they are, I'm pretty happy with this top 10. Next up, we have Ivy. Ivy is sort of right outside of the top 10, right? She has a lot of strengths, but she has more issues. And so again, A is good, but some issues. So the issues are either more noticeable or more exploitable, or there's just more issues. And you're going to see that as we go. So Ivy, I feel like Ivy doesn't really need an explanation at this point. She has access to the most range in the game, the strongest throws in the game, albeit a bit of an execution barrier there. And one of them isn't even breakable. Her Oki game is very good. Her ranged game is incredibly good. Her lethal hit power is very good. And by that, I don't necessarily mean the damage, because I know the damage has been nerfed a few times over the course of the game. But just what her lethal hits are. She is one of the characters who's hitting lethal hits in a game. Whereas, prior to this, like all the characters above her, they might go whole games without hitting a single lethal hit. Ivy, this is probably not going to be the case, right? So she's very strong. Her combos can end either right at her feet if she wants to go for like a throw mid mix, or they can end far away to reset the neutral. She has a lot of control over her combo routes and what she wants, where she wants you to be. Like Ivy controls the screen no matter what. Just by existing, Ivy controls the screen, and that's very valuable. Her wall game is okay, but her ring out potential is high. The biggest issues with Ivy are that in order for her to, and she has one of the best backsteps in the game, which is very uncommon for a more zoner character, but that comes with a price. The problem with Ivy is she has no way to get you off of her without fully committing to a punishable lethal hit via 2-2A or 4-4B, or she has to settle for a 16 frame 2A that isn't even a true low. Okay, so Ivy can sometimes be susceptible to pressure, especially if her back is to the wall. Oh boy, if your back is to the wall as Ivy, it's basically GG. She just doesn't have the speed or the ability to really contest you or stop that, so she has to rely on movement and good blocking, or of course a GI as well. But if you're aware of that, you can bait things like GI. You can control her movement with horizontals, etc., etc. So her defense is a bit spooky. Her CE, even though it does parry things, I believe it's only verticals. Yeah, I believe it's only verticals. So you can still hit her out with horizontals, or it's the other way around. Just right now off the top of my head, I can't remember. So it's frankly not a very good CE. And so many times you'll see Ivies, when they can't backstep, they have to rely on soul charge. to get out, which is fine. Like, her soul charge is solid, and it does push you away, right? So it's a very good option. But the fact that she has to rely on that for her defense is kind of crappy. But she's good. She's a very strong character, very powerful, very creative. Like, you can play her very uniquely. Yeah, she has just a lot of tools. Bit of an execution barrier, though. A couple key just frames and inputs that you really need to get good with. But yeah, her defense is just a little bit lacking, and so for that reason, and because of how important that is, she's down here. And just to put that in perspective, characters who can bum rush her down, or characters with really oppressive soul charges, can seriously be a problem for Ivy. So, yeah. Next up, Setsuka. So Setsuka, here we go. Setsuka is a character who is barely played, and for good reason. She is not for everybody. This is probably the one character in the roster who is designed for a specific kind of player, and that player is a very few amount of people ever. And that style is all pokes, all small. You're fishing for those counter hits. She is the counter hit fisher of Soul Calibur. Way too many Setsuka players try to play her with big 3-3-Bs. Like, I get it, it's a safe launcher, but it's too slow, it's too linear, and if you're going to just play like that, play another character like Xianghua or Amy. You don't need to be playing Setsuka to do that. She thrives on the fact that she has counter-hitting mids that are entirely safe. Her low pokes are very irritating and powerful. They're barely punishable. Like, her lows oftentimes are only -12, which is very good. Her soul charge, albeit hard to get, as she does have the consistently has the smallest amount of meter gain in the game. That's one of her bigger issues, is her meter gain, by the way. Her soul charge is very good. It's very powerful. She has just a low that converts straight into, I think it's 52 or 54, where she counts to 5. And then she has pressure off of that. So she's a very technical character. She has a lot going on. She does have her little mechanics that she wants to charge. She is all about block punishment, whiff punishment, and counter hits. She is defense through and through, but way too many players play her as like this offensive safe launcher character, which is just totally wrong. And then they wonder why they have such a hard time playing her. With that said, there is of course a time and place to turn up the heat. Of course, right? Don't misunderstand. But the typical playstyle is counter hit fishing, small caliber, being a real pain in the ass in the neutral game for your opponent to deal with. But her biggest holdback right now is none of that. Okay? Right now, given the situation in the world with the pandemic and no offline events, Setsuka's major flaw is the fact that she is the worst character to play online. Period. She is awful because she has a ton of just frames that require speed and timing or precision. She has a ton of combos that use multiple just frames, and to use these just frames online is just awful. It's awful. It's particularly because Soul Calibur right now is delay-based netcode, and delay-based netcode, when you're trying to do super fast inputs or specific timing inputs, that sucks. Whereas even if it was rollback in a bad rollback connection, at least your inputs wouldn't be delayed, so you could still do the just frames, right? So because of the design of the online environment, that really does hold Setsuka back as well. Now, I'm not saying she would be up beside Cassandra or anything, but I'm just saying, if you're going to get into Setsuka or you're a Setsuka player, that is your biggest hurdle right now, is playing in an online environment, and it sucks. It really sucks. So, really good character, severely underrepresented, but for good reason. She is not for everybody. Counter hit fisher galore, and heavy on the execution. If that sounds up your alley, then great, pick her. But if not so much, then yeah, maybe not. Next we have Zas. Now, this is a character that's actually steadily falling, in my opinion, in terms of tier. I actually had him lower, but I think given who is below him, I'm content putting him here. Zas has got to be one of the most annoying characters to fight, though, I will admit. Character has an irritating amount of horizontals that you have to be aware of, an irritating amount of powerful counter hits and lethal hits. This dude's lethal hits are incredibly strong. And his combos are freaking a cutscene. You might as well go and cook a turkey while you're in a Zaz combo. As soon as this dude gets 2 curses on you, or 3, it's basically like 1 hit is potential death, whether it's a ring out, wall combo, whatever. So his combo game is very good, as long as you have curses on you. Without curses, his combo game is a meme. His reversal edge attack has a cancel, which is very strong. His CE is very strong. It's just a straight up parry. His soul charge is okay. A little one-trick pony with a 1A, but still not bad. And his soul attack, I don't see it that often, so I have to imagine it's not that good. I don't think it's that bad, but maybe it's just a situation of there's not many places to fit it into combos. I don't know much about like the combo theory that goes into his soul attack, so I won't comment on it, but I don't think it's a very good soul attack. But so those are some of his issues. His biggest issues, though, in my opinion, are the amount of counterplay he has with the strings if you just play a really tight defense, how punishable some of his key buttons are without curses, and his lows. So his lows are relatively weak. Arguably his best lows in terms of consistency and risk reward are like a 1A and a 2K. But his 1A is incredibly stubby, and his 2K is just a standard 2K, so that's pretty whatever, right? But he makes up for that by having really good mids, really good space control. You can never... The biggest power of Zas is you cannot pressure a Zas when his back is to the ring edge and he has the life lead. Because he has so many reverse ring out options, it's ridiculous. And both vertical and horizontal, by the way, and one grab. So if a Zas gets a life lead and books it to a half wall or a ring edge, you're going to have a really hard time dealing with that. And so for that reason alone, that and the space control, he remains a relevant character. But he is a very exploitable character. You can do an OS against his 6-6A, for example, where if he does 6-6A, you punish it, and then if he does 6-6A hold, you can parry it. And a lot of characters can do this with a horizontal auto GI. This is a big problem. Really, like, the power of Zaz comes from the space control, the reverse ring out, and his CE. And in particular, by CE, I mean sitting on a bar and just threatening it is huge, actually. His combos are flashy and long, but they are gate kept by having curses on the opponent. So his character has a lot of counterplay, but his design can make him somewhat toxic. You get the life lead his ass and you just hang out by the ring edge, and it's potential GG. So for that reason, he's still here. Although there is a world where if there was an A- tier, which I don't have here, Zas would be in it, in my opinion. I don't think he's super strong. From here on out, basically, because now we're getting to the lower half of the roster, it's kind of downhill from here. But Zas is sort of this focal point of like, he has some good things, but his cons outweigh the pros. But his pros are so powerful that you can't dismiss them, right? He's kind of in that situation, in my opinion, right now. So, if you think Zas should be higher, I think that's acceptable. I will never agree to put him in A+, though, but if you think he should be above Ivy, I'll accept that. So moving on, Sophie. Sophie is a character who has kind of fallen from grace, and it strictly has to come down to the soul charge nerfs that she's received, although she still has a strong soul charge. And the vertical changes as well, making her 2-2B and 6-6B track a hell of a lot less. Excuse me. She's still a good character, though. Like, she's a very solid, consistent character. You can't really go wrong with Sophie. However, her 6-6A and her 3A are both her horizontal mids. They're both punishable. Her 6-6B is finally steppable, heavy recovery. So her neutral game is actually, like, if you play at range 2 or more against Sophie, her neutral game is incredibly predictable. So her effective range is actually quite low in my opinion. Like, basically every Sophie player on the planet, all I do is play a range 2 or further and just sidestep constantly until they flinch, and then I block. 66A isn't going to hit me, and it'll whiff, or sorry, 66B is just going to whiff, and I'll block 66A, and then I get a free punish. So she's definitely more focused now around pokes up close, and then also whiff punishment and block punishment, because Sophie's lethal hits are so good in being defensive and punishing. Like, she is, if Raph is the punish king, Sophie is the punish queen, right? She is just all about just really capitalizing on your mistakes, and that's kind of where she shines, is making you feel like, oh my god, I can never make a mistake. That's what Sophie's all about. And that's a very strong playstyle, and she has a very serviceable soul charge and poke game to sort of complement that, to give her a bit more of an offensive lean. Her post-GI game is very good as well. She has great tech crouching, evasive moves. Yeah, so she's a very solid character. I just think that she suffers a little bit in the neutral due to having all of her options be punishable that she would want to use or whiff. And her soul charge got fair changes that makes it a little less ridiculous, and so it's still a great option. And her soul attack, this is sort of the first character, her soul attack is insane. Like, her soul attack is ridiculous. It's like a disjointed hit hurt box situation. It hits grounded. It's plus on block. I know that's kind of common though, but it's such a good soul attack. So she's a good character. She's just not ridiculous like she used to be. And so for those reasons, I bump her down here. The reason she's below Cassandra, by the way, this might be a point of contention. The reason she's below Cassandra is Cassandra actually has better neutral, don't at me, because she is a lot safer than Sophitia. And she can still punish mistakes. Not as hard, of course, but she has a lot more flexibility in her game plan, whereas Sophie's a little more one-dimensional, a little bit. And Cass hits like a truck. Her throw game is way better. Like, Sophie's throw game is kind of a joke. So yeah, they're very similar characters though. Cass is a bit more of an offensive lean. Sophie is a bit more of a defensive lean. And I think you could be happy playing either of these characters though, don't misunderstand. And they both do have their weaknesses, okay? So I just want to address that, as they are both the same weapon, but they are different fighting styles, okay? Next up we have Kilik. Kilik is a character who's sort of been middle of the pack for a while now, at least in my opinion. He's not bad though. He has a plethora of strong lows. One of them is safe on block. In the case of, I believe the input is 22B slide K or 22K slide B. I always forget. It's a great low. His 4A, of course, his counting low has a lethal hit associated with it. His 1A leads to huge damage and sort of a reset situation of a 1A loop. His 1K is serviceable. It does have a follow-up. And so yeah, his lows are really good. And to complement that, he has one of the best 5B strings in the game. He has a ton of mids. He has like pretty good buttons at all ranges. However, the problem with Kilik is when he's not in soul charge, I'm just not worried about anything. One of Kilik's biggest strengths used to be, at one point in time, used to be his post-GI game. That has since been nerfed quite hard. And so now I'm not really afraid of mashing into a Kilik. I'm not really afraid of Monument, as you can re-GI it, albeit that is difficult to do. But with some practice, you can definitely do it. He really struggles to pressure the opponent outside of low pokes when he is not soul charged, and that can be a big problem. So his biggest issue for me is just his inability to make an effective comeback, really, without soul charge. Like this is probably the one character where soul charge is an actual comeback mechanic for Kilik because he needs it. But without it, he's very lacking in the offensive department. You're really not going to open me up. Like, his lows, while they're good, 1A is very commitment heavy, and the other ones are just so whatever, I don't care. When he's in soul charge though, then he becomes a much stronger character. His damage output is very high. His grab game is incredibly strong. You can never be -12 or you're gonna get CE'd. Yeah, Soul Charge Kilik is pretty good. But regular Kilik is of course who you're playing more often than not, and I think he lacks some offensive prowess. But his neutral and defense is fairly good. His block punishment is okay. His whiff punishment can be strong if you have a 2-2B ready to go on deck, because you'll get a lethal hit. But outside of 2-2B, his whiff punishment could use a little bit of work. But overall, he's just a well-rounded character. You can't really go wrong. But just understand that the playstyle of regular Kilik versus Soul Charge Kilik is quite different, as are the power levels and how you play them. So he's a little iffy in that respect for me, but still a solid pick. Where are we? The last one I have in A tier is probably like, I don't know, probably the biggest. Yeah, okay, so Hwang. This character, I think this character is severely underrated by everybody. Like, while I do think he's outclassed in certain aspects of his game, particularly by Cervantes, I think he brings other things to the table. His Soul Charge is pretty good. He actually has reverse ring out options, which many characters actually don't. So that's cool. His button range is huge. His pokes are pretty good. His block punishment is pretty good. With talismans, if you're willing to spend them, I mean, he can convert so much damage off of like just stray hits or his 3B. His auras are pretty cool, although they are somewhat negligible in the grand scheme of things. They do add up in certain matchups or certain situations, particularly the red or blue auras. Those ones get very strong, very fast in some matchups. The green aura is sort of your default. I don't know what else to use, so I'm just going to get some extra health. But his throw game is great. He has an unbreakable grab and soul charge. His CE is pretty standard. Yeah, he's just a very well-rounded character. The problem with Hwang, and his only issues, are the fact that he has to commit to talismans for damage, which can hurt him in the long run, and his frames on hit and block are kind of a joke. Like, Hwang will never be able to keep pressure against you. You can mash against this character defensively, like all game long. He's barely ever more than like +2, +4 on hit, and when he's minus, he's usually more than -4. So for him, it's very like hit and run, tap and go. He really has a one game plan, and that is neutral. That's where he wants to be. That's what he's good at. And other than neutral, he just lacks. But the reason why I don't have him in B+ is I think that you could main Hwang and have such a good matchup chart. That, like, to me, that's really important. Hwang's matchup chart is fairly well balanced, and so you can't go wrong. Like, he's a very consistently solid pick. Even though he does lack offensive pressure, and his talismans you do need talismans for damage. I think that it all really adds up. His stances are either really strong or not strong at all. That is, on hit, some of his stance transitions lead to guaranteed follow-ups, which is sick. But on block, you can pretty much, on every transition, you can just launch punish him if he goes into stance. So, a little tricky in that respect. But yeah, I think he's underrated. I really do. I don't see why people are putting him, like, some tier lists that I've seen over the last couple months are putting him like bottom 5. I'm like, in what world, right? That just seems really dramatic to me. That just sounds like a lack of understanding of what makes a character strong in general, right? So he rounds off our A tier, but I think if you wanted to put him into B+ for the lacking aspect, I think I would accept that. But for me, for now, he remains there. I think he's super underrated, but I'm not saying he's necessarily strong. Yeah. So that is that. Moving on to B+ tier. First up, we have Astaroth. So Astaroth, I mean, really, I feel like this one's kind of a given my descriptors of the tiers. He is the king of inconsistency, right? Because he hits like a truck when he hits. His grabs hit like a truck when they land. His soul charge is probably his most consistent and powerful tool that he has. It's so ridiculous. Yeah, there's spins to win, like, I think 3 or 4 times. Or he has just +8s left, right, and center in soul charge. It's so irritating to deal with Astaroth and soul charge. There's really nothing you can do unless your reactions are god tier and you can just RI everything on reaction. Good luck. His throws just get buffed. His damage is ridiculous. His CE is ridiculous. I feel like, yeah, his meter use is really good. But when he's not in soul charge, that's when the kinks in the armor start to shine. So the reason why Astaroth is a real pain in the ass to fight, mostly, is because his 3K, his 3K and his full crouch 3K, which is, so the first one is the leg lift stomp, it's 14 frames, and the other one is his full crouch bull rush. They track, and it's fucking irritating because you're like, I fully stepped this vertical thrusting move, and yet your hitbox is just so goddamn fat you hit me anyway. It sucks. So I hate fighting Astaroth for that reason. Like, his hitboxes just make me pull my hair out. But his strengths come in the form of course, a crouch throw, which is always nice to have. His grabs deal heavy damage. His 6K, 6K, and 3K are all great mids, although 2 of those are punishable. His 5BA is one of the best ranged keep-out tools in the game. It's where he swings the axe down and then to the side. That move is actually really strong because it is a mid-high, but it's a jailing string if you don't delay it. So that move is crazy good. Yes, he has issues, but I mean, first and foremost, like, they've designed him as a grappler, although I think, you know, he's not the best person at being a grappler, oddly enough. But it's just the nature of the character, right? Coin flip city. There's really nothing more to say. So he's super inconsistent. He is lacking a bit, as he doesn't really have, you know, a hoary mid that you'd want to be afraid of. But crouching against this character is strong, but keep in mind you will be taking a heckload of chip damage from, or I guess poke damage I should say, from those vertical mids, okay? So you can crouch Astaroth all game long and you won't get hit by the big boy throws, but be aware that you are going to take other damage from other sources. So he's sort of the king of inconsistency. This dude can go 2-0 in a set or 0-2, and it's entirely up to players' ability to break throws, but because throw breaks are a 50-50 in Soul Calibur, it's like, okay, right? So he's basically the king of inconsistency, and that's why he's there. Taki. This is another character that people will be like, meh. Why don't you have Taki higher? Taki's so good. Oh my god. Alright, look. I'm sorry to tell you this, Taki stands, but 4 good buttons does not make a character a good character, okay? So, Taki, I guess let's go over the strengths. Taki has very strong whiff punish game. Like, oddly enough, for a stubby ninja character, you wouldn't think, but yeah, no, her whiff punishment is very strong. Right, with 3B and 3B hold, and then her A6 as well, those 2 moves alone, and then 6-6B up close. Those 3 moves are so strong. The A6 and the 6-6B will lead to lethal hit combos, and then the 3B is just really far range and fast, so it's consistent with punish. But the list kind of ends there. Like, her approach with 6-6A plus B, while effective, doesn't lead to a whole lot, but it is effective, so she can get in a bit easier than some other characters can. Her CE, it's not like, because I'm addressing the things that people might talk about. Her CE is not like Zasalamel's or Nightmare's, because when she uses it, she either has to hard read you, or she has to use it against like slower strings. But because of how long it takes for the move to actually come out, if she tries to just use it, but you don't commit to a string, you're able to block and punish in time. So that can be a little annoying. But I will say this, her soul attack is so good. Like, her soul attack is one of the best in the game. It does, if memory serves, 24 chip damage, I think, which is crazy. Like that's actually crazy. And her soul charge has a ton of plus frames, a ton of chip damage. Like chip damage is what Taki's all about. When she is forcing, like you have to just hold that against the soul charge Taki for a lot of what she wants to do. You gotta hold that. This chick is chipping you out. Like you're eating probably like 40 to 60 damage in chip if you just blocked Taki the entire time, theoretically. Which is crazy to think about, right? But that's kind of what she's all about because of Meki, her dagger. Whenever it glows purple, she does chip damage, and so it really adds up with soul charges built in chip. But other than I forgot to mention the soul attack. So other than the whiff punishment and the soul attack, she's a very lackluster character, like a very lackluster character. Her lows are a joke. They're all either super weak, risky, or reactable, or in some cases, all three. Her possession stance basically loses to mostly 2A in many situations. There are some transitions where she doesn't lose to 2A, or the only way she can beat the 2A consistently is by using the kickflip. The problem with the kickflip is even though it is a pretty good move on hit, there's no pressure afterwards, and if on block, if memory serves, it is minus 16, so it's like pretty punishable for a move that I may not even use, that being 2A. She does have a reversal edge cancel, but unlike some of the other ones, it doesn't lead to anything at all. So it's more of a, oh, I don't actually want to RE here. I kind of just wanted to parry and make space. So not the greatest thing ever. Her lethal hit game, again, other than whiff punishing, is kind of a joke. Her grab game in possession actually is not that strong. It used to be stronger, but then by making it more consistent, they actually inherently nerfed it. Her 3B, so I want to come back to the 3B. People talk about the 3B like it's some god tier move, and it makes her A+ tier. I don't know what that's all about, because when Taki uses 3B regular, it is punishable. However, when she uses 3B hold, if you run forward slightly, even with the biggest characters in the game, like Asta, you can, with a bit of lab work, you can find a timing where you can punish every single time she does 3B hold. Every single time. So, for me, in my opinion, every time I fight a Taki and they 3B me, I just assume they're going to hold and I'm running forward. And if they don't do 3B hold, I basically 2A or grab. Right? Because I'm not going to get the 16 frame punish on blocking. I think it's 16. It's minus 14 or minus 16. I can't remember. On the regular 3B. And so, oh, she didn't go over me. I'm just going to grab. Right? At least that's what I do. And then when she does hold, oh, I ran right underneath. Boom. Free punish every single time. Not a single option she has can catch it. And every single option she has is about to get punished. Boom. So, like, I understand it's a 16 frame tech crouching launcher, but, like, don't act like it's not punishable, right? You know, and I'm sorry, she needs it. Like, think about it. If Taki didn't have it at 16 frames, like say it was 20 frames, or say it didn't tech crouch, what would Taki have, right? So it's not fair to pinpoint the couple of strengths that a character has and be like, holy shit, this character is busted, without addressing the fact that if she didn't have those, she would be awful. Okay? And frankly, even when she hits you with 3B hold, it doesn't even lead to that great damage. Because there's no Oki after she does the air throw. Okay? And I know there's other combo routes, but I'm just saying. So yeah, Taki is severely overrated. And I do not understand why. She is definitely playable though. Remember, every character is playable in this game and can win a tournament. I'm going to reiterate that. But her strengths are so few and far between that she just lacks, right? She's not inconsistent like Astaroth, but she just lacks severely. Her neutral's just not there. Other than whiff punishment, she just doesn't have it. Her pressure's not really there. Yeah, she's a lot of work for very little reward, which is really too bad, actually, because she does take quite a bit of skill to play well. But the player carries this character, not the other way around. Next, you have Haohmaru. Really, kind of the same thing with Taki. Like, the list of strengths is very low. With that said, he doesn't necessarily have inherent weaknesses, so let's talk about it. So Haohmaru's greatest assets are his backstep and his 6B. And then, as a whiff punish or in soul charge, his heavy slash, right? Heavy slash does a combo's worth of damage well, more than a combo's worth of damage. 6B is an incredibly annoying safe poke, one of the furthest reaching vertical mids in the game, and it does have a stance follow-up, just if you wanted to ever use it. And then his backstep is the best in the game, in terms of speed and distance covered. So he's very much a 2D character in that he walks backwards and forwards, and he pokes with a vertical move. The other thing that he really has going for him is his... I might get the input wrong, but I believe it's 4-4K, where he leaps in the air and he does a kick coming down. That is totally safe, and that move jumps highs, okay? I've labbed it, at least for my character, Xianghua. He jumps straight over all of my highs. It's ridiculous. He jumps over mids, he jumps over highs. It's so frustrating, and if he jumps, I think if he jumps a low, he gets the lethal hit, although it might be lows and mids, I can't remember. But I think it's just lows. So yeah, his damage output can get pretty staggering, staggeringly high, that is. He has a great throw game, like both directions. I'm pretty sure both directions have command throws, and they're awesome. Like they can lead into ring outs or critical edges or wall splats. Great throw game. Problem is, Haohmaru is rarely in range to actually to really use that throw game, so it does help him in his up close battles. He does have the Ronin cancels off of moves, which also again helps him keep that pressure and keep the opponent guessing. The thing is, his lows aren't really anything to write home about, and if he's not really ever in range to use the throws, how is a Haohmaru ever going to open you up, right? So his offensive pressure just isn't really there. That's not what he's about. He's more about the spacing and the poking and being really annoying. He does have a serviceable amount of horizontals that do lead to good frame advantage or knockdown in some situations. However, they just don't do that much damage. His 2-2A string to bring that up, both options are punishable on block, or both are GIable with the same timing, so that's not great either. His warrior focus is only a true transition off of his 2-2K. Everything else, if you block it, you can just, at bare minimum, you can 2A. And his bare knuckle stance is basically a gimmick. Like, the only reason he'll ever use the bare knuckle is to try to catch you, right? Catch your weapon. That's about it. Other than that, it's kind of a gimmick. He can't even block in that stance, which is kind of silly. Yeah, he's got a whole lot of gimmicks and very little substance. But kind of like Taki, the substance he does have is a very serviceable game plan. Like, don't misunderstand. You can... Like, this dude completely thrashes characters who have a hard time chasing or a hard time keeping you in. With his backstep, 6B, and a couple of hori mids, or horizontals, you can really create a serviceable game plan. And every time they whiff, it's just like heavy slash, boom. Heavy slash, boom, right? His soul charge just amplifies it further. His game plan further, I mean. Yeah, and in his Rage Explosion, he does gain access to a 14-frame CE via Eason. The problem with it is the damage reduces the longer he's in soul charge. I'm pretty sure at latest possible it's 50 damage. I might be off by a few points there. So 50 damage is kind of yikes, and you can actually bait it with like a sidestep guard. So, you know, it's there, it's good. But it's not necessarily the end-all be-all of his game plan. Like, when he Rage Explodes, you're not really worried about anything other than that. But his damage is very high on this character. That's pretty much it for Haohmaru. Like, pretty straightforward. I probably made it sound more complicated than it is. But yeah, very straightforward game plan, very effective game plan. If you like being lame, he's a great pick. Seong Mi-na. Seong Mi-na is a character I think a lot of people overrate, and I can understand why. She's a very irritating character to fight, but what you have to understand is a lot of her verticals are incredibly linear, like disgustingly linear. The amount of times that like, even when I've tried to play Mi-na or fought against a Mi-na, like, there's no reason that vertical should have whiffed. It whiffed anyway. There's no reason I should have actually stepped that, because I stepped before she started her animation. It whiffed anyway, and I'm not joking. So that really sucks. Like, I think Seong Mi-na is too linear right now. And then, of course, 6A exists, but without 6A, she can't really stop you from stepping in the neutral. She does have 6A, but that's pretty whatever. Her soul charge is annoying. It's annoying and it's decent. It does reset the situation a lot, but because of Seong Mi-na's lack of offensive game plan, you can kind of just wait it out, to be quite frank. You can wait out her soul charge, and because it freezes the timer, there's no risk in you doing that. So without a way to enforce the pressure with soul charge, there's no way to really gain guaranteed value out of the soul charge, right? It's kind of like Ivy in that you would use the soul charge more as a get off me tool than anything, which is fine. Like, that's totally cool. But other than soul charge, unfortunately, her meter use is kind of not great. She can use the CE in some situations to get a grounded stun into a like a wall splat or a ring out follow up. Rarely will Mina's ever use it for the actual damage though, because her combos do fairly good damage as it is, and the scaling on the CE is a little, it's a little iffy. Like, was that really worth the bar? And her soul attack is kind of a joke. There's only like, yeah, there's so few situations where you'd ever want to use it. It's not that good. She does still have full crouch 1kk, very irritating low up close, but up close is where she struggles. Other than the linearness of her pokes, which makes her inconsistent, her up close game is kind of, it's quite bad. She does have a 12 frame 2A, unlike Ivy, but she doesn't have the movement like Ivy does. And her auto GIs are good, but they're very slow. And I'm pretty sure they're all vertical as well. So if you're stepping against Amina up close, there's very little she can do about it other than try to catch you with the full crouch 1K or the 2A. But she does have auto GIs up close, so you do have to be aware of those. Although most, if not all of them, lose to kicks if I'm not mistaken, so use more kicks when you're in her face. And yeah, overall she just lacks those tools to defend herself without soul charge. And like, I'm telling you, if you guys look at it and you try to look at situations of this character whiffing, it's awful. Like, it's disgusting how much this character just whiffs. And the last thing I'll say about this character is that her Oki game, people talk about it like it's some god tier Oki. I completely disagree. Yeah, she does good guard damage, but that's kind of it. Like, Seong Mi-na's whole her whole game plan is guard damage. If you were to take away that from her, she would be a joke. Like, she would be a 1-for-1 worse Kilik if she didn't have the guard damage game plan, right? And I mean, I know she's below Kilik, but you get my point. So her 4-4A low is entirely reactable. Like, you can block, stand up, and then still crouch. So 4-4A, not that good. The only way you're catching someone with 4-4A is if they've already used it and if you've used it and they've already done a move, right? So it becomes a counter hit. And that's of course reasonable, right? There's still a reason to use it, and it's actually safe on block at tipper range. So it's still a good move. It's just not, you can't use it on Oki like you used to. And so you do have to hold that mid, and if you do hold that mid, you will take a hefty amount of guard damage, which I believe is 6-6A plus B is the typical go-to. But that's it. Like, because Seong Mi-na doesn't have offensive pressure and she lacks defensive tools, she's not fully there. Like, she has the potential, right? Don't misunderstand. Like, I wish Mina was represented more. I know a lot of people hate her, but I think she's a great character. I think she's wonderfully designed. I think she's really cool. And I wish that she was played more. So, like, nobody plays this character. There's, off the top of my head, there are 2 Mina mains in tournament, and one of them mains like 4 characters. So yeah, she's super underrepresented, but I don't think she's that strong right now. But if she was ever going to get anything, I would say if they beefed up her up close game or made her just give her a hair more tracking. Like, it's such a joke. That would be enough to really bring her back into the conversation. So this is when everyone's probably, you know what, I'm tired of hearing this nonsense about Azwel being top 5. I don't know who hurt you, right? I don't know what savior of humanity you're losing to, but like, bruh, this character is not top 5. I don't know. Y'all are crazy, okay? Azwel is a frustrating character to fight, I'll admit. And the reason why, for me at least, is the fact you can't see the weapon. It does add some ambiguity to what he's doing, right? And the character himself, some people find very irritating, which I can understand that. And axe low is just, it feels awful to get hit by axe low. But here's the thing. Azwel requires a little bit of lab work to understand how to counter all of his stances, except for Almighty, because of course Almighty, he has access to everything. So I guess I should just get that right out of the way. So Azwel's strengths are different from stance to stance. So in Sword, he has one of the best 10 frame 5As in the game, in that it has great range. You can stagger it, and as a punish, it goes into 5AB. Really good. And then he also has a very good 2A when he's in Sword. And then if you ever whiff and he's in Sword, he has B plus K, a great launcher. Solid. In Shield, he has incredibly safe, huge buttons. Huge buttons. He has a 12 frame launcher from Crouch, so you never really want to use lows against Azwel when he's in Shield. And then he does have a his auto GIs as well can cover him. Granted, they don't give him anything. They just basically reset neutral. But the fact is, he can just use these buttons constantly. And even when he whiffs, you have to think twice about swinging into him. And then an axe, he of course has a I-14 to I-15 6B. I say 14 to 15 because of the travel time. It's not actually I-14 as the further away you go from Azwel. And then, yeah, axe low is really good for what it is. And he does have a safe launcher as well. I'm pretty sure it's safe. Full crouch 3B. So that's really nice as well. But everything I just said has inherent counterplay. So basically, I'm not going to go full detail because this isn't the place for it. But Swords, basically, there's no threatening mid whatsoever. And 2BB, while it does natural combo, like what you do is 2BB, K, AB. It is a combo. It's a very cool combo. One of my favorites in the game, actually. The thing is, he ends in shield. So other than that, he has no threatening mids in Sword whatsoever. There's no low in Sword, so you never need to block low. You just have to play tight against Sword, and really you're fine. Shield, it doesn't matter if those auto GIs hit you because they just reset neutral. It doesn't do anything. His weapon art in Shield, the where he spins all the stuff, it's a vertical. You can step it and it loses to lows, and it's block punishable or launch punishable on block. And it's very slow. Like he has no punishable nothing. Yeah, sorry. His punishment while in Shield, other than crouching punishment, is a joke. So you can basically start using whatever you want against Shield as well and just laugh. And then Axe, you can step duck. And I know people say, oh, just step 2G forehead. No, you can't do that against Nightmare, contrary to popular belief. You can't do that against Raph. You can't do that against, like, anybody. But Axwell, legitimately, like, the frames, you can. Like, the frames are designed in a way that you can, if you look at the math doesn't lie. You legitimately step 2G against Azwel in Axe when you're basically -4 or better, and there's nothing he can do. Like, Axe low will get blocked, 6B will whiff, and you can react to 3A in time. Right? Now, with that said, too, Axe low is sort of the big piece of contention when it comes to point of contention when it comes to Azwel. Axe low, you really need to understand the risk associated with Axe low. Okay, I understand that it's ultra fast, but if it doesn't hit you within a certain range, you don't get launched. When this happens, Azwel is now weaponless. He's minus on hit and weaponless, which means you just get to run this dude down, and you're gonna force a soul charge, frankly. Or his B plus K. His B plus K, I think he goes like 4 love, and he pushes you away. The problem is, that does no damage on hit, there's no pressure either, and on block, it's launch punishable. So, Azwel's reversal edge sucks, his post-GI game sucks, his get off me tools, non-existent. He doesn't have a 12 frame 2A when he's not in Swords. He doesn't have an I-10 or I-12 5A when he's not in Swords. Like, this dude's defense is a meme. Or it is so risky. Like I'm sorry, but like to all the other competitive players out there who think Azwel is top 5, you are actually an idiot. Like, and I'm calling you out because this character has so many exploitable weaknesses. Especially if you can contest his range, dude. Like, no, I'm sorry. This character is severely lacking outside of Soul Charge, but we'll come back to that. Like, it's ridiculous. With that said, though, and when people talk about Axe Oki, you can roll it. So roll to Azwel's left, I believe it is, or yeah, Azwel's left, and you'll avoid the 6-6B. The Axe low, you just get up after it hits you grounded. The list goes on. Soul Charge Azwel is when the character is actually fairly decent. He's a decent character. He's not a broken character by no means, but he's a solid character when he's in Soul Charge. The problem is this dude has to commit every single bar, every single time, every waking moment that he sees a number 1 up by his health bar. This dude's popping Soul Charge, and that actually comes with an inherent problem. Problem is when Azwel has a bar and let's say he's weaponless, or maybe he's an Axe, because Axe has 0 defensive options, by the way. You know he wants to Soul Charge, so you can bait it, you can RI it, you can whatever. But the biggest weakness with Azwel and Soul Charge, and I don't see enough players doing this or even talking about it, is even though he's a pretty solid character in Soul Charge, when you resist impact any move against a Soul Charged opponent, they lose 25% of their bar. Any move. Doesn't have to be a guard break. I know that's what we use RI for, but it's any move. So if you're willing and able to save your meter to counter Azwel's meter, it's worth it, because you will just completely dismiss this character's power level by RIing when you can, and it's hilarious, frankly. But again, I'll admit, in Soul Charge, he's a solid character, and that's why he's not in the bottom tier and weak, because I think that he is still relevant in Soul Charge. But every one of his stances have completely different counterplay, and frankly, it takes practice, and you're not going to get it right every time. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I 3-0 every Azwel ever. No, that's unrealistic, right? That's ridiculous. It's difficult. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's easy, okay? It takes practice. But if you can follow along, if you understand the character, if you understand his frame deficits, and how he works, like, it's pretty unfortunate, actually. Like, a lot of Azwel mains have since swapped characters, and the ones who stick with him do recognize that he has some inherent weaknesses. The thing is, like, they're doing the best they can, and I respect that. But if you think this character is top 5 material, you are seriously stuck in the past. Like, you are seriously thinking this is Season 1 Azwel. Like, you are unbelievable if you think this character is top 5, and I'm going to leave it at that. I don't care. You can fucking quote me on it. I will prove it to you. I don't care. This character needs help right now. Okay. Next up, to round off B+, we have Maxi. Maxi, it actually hurts me to put him in B+. I want to put him in B, but I won't. And that's because I don't think Maxi is inherently power crept or weak. So the thing is, Maxi doesn't fulfill the roles that he doesn't meet the criteria that I have created for a B tier. Therefore, he's at the bottom of B+. But I don't think Maxi is a very strong character. Why? Well, the reason why is there are probably 3 Maxi players, maybe 4, who I have ever seen, heard of, read, fought, watched, who play this character to any amount of success, and who understand how to really take advantage of the character. With that said, though, the amount of work these people are putting in for the reward that they gain is just not there. Like, the amount of effort you have to put into main Maxi effectively in a competitive environment is way too much work for what he puts out. Even a player like Rich Sticks, he picks Maxi against most players and most characters because most players and most characters don't understand how to deal with him, or deal with him with Maxi, or deal with Maxi at all, and so he can kind of get away with it. But when a player knows, and like Rich Sticks is a pretty diehard Maxi mate, even he will swap off, right? So like, he knows, he's aware. If you know all the gaps in Maxi's stuff, or you know to gauge the risk reward of this character, he's got nothing left. Like, his Oki's not the greatest, his neutral's not the greatest, or it's punishable. He has some completely dumpster fire unwinnable matchups. Not unwinnable, but like dumpster fire matchups. Really, Maxi comes down to try this, which is his 6A plus B and his CE. Those are probably his two best buttons. His CE is really good, actually. Yeah, though if you put time, like it takes work to learn how to fully beat Maxi. If you put that time in and you look at the situations, this character is not good, dude. I'm telling you. Like, there are a ton of S1 and S2 and A1 Maxi mains. Let me tell you something. They're all playing Maxi the exact same way, and they just die. They crumble against players who know how to deal with his stance games. Because unfortunately, his stance dancing is very weak. But he does have some utility. Like, he has great tech crouches. He has great whiff punishment. But the thing is, if you just let Maxi hang himself on you, you're not really ever going to whiff. Right? Neutral Guard being regiable, Heaven's Guard being regiable, PSL only covering horizontals, none of them covering lows except for Heaven's Guard. Kind of problematic, right? Back lower not being a real mix-up. Yeah, the list goes on with this character. He is not good. Anyone who says otherwise, and I hate using this sentence, they don't know the matchup if they think this character is good. Okay? And same with Azwel. Like, these two characters right now, severely overrated. Like, severely overrated. Yeah. But I do understand that if you're learning the game or run into a Maxi online, he can feel top tier. I totally respect that. But I promise you, if you were to put the time in, he's not that great. Okay. So now we're into the tier of Power Crept or Weak. So this is the one where there's going to be a few hot takes, according to some people, but say what you will, frankly, I don't care. So first we have Groh. Groh is super close. Like, Groh is a character where if you wanted to put him in B+, I'd be like, yeah, sure, go for it. Grow for it. But this is a situation of not power creep, but weakness. Okay? So Groh, he is designed to be sort of this advancing character. He closes the gap very quickly, which he does. And he goes forward with a lot of his moves. They're very advancing strings. It's very easy to play. And because he has multi-hit strings, it's good for things like hit confirms, counter hit confirms. It's easy to combo with, etc., etc. But his backstep sucks. That's why he's all about going forward. His movement is not good. Problem with Groh, in all situations, basically, is the amount of stuff he has that's punishable or GIable. And so let's just kind of go front to back here. So with his approach game, the strings are either GIable, steppable, duckable, or like there's some form of counterplay or punishment there. Okay. When it comes to his offense, to go into stance, you can't hit confirm all of them. You can hit confirm some of his transitions, but not all of them. In which case, the stance is actually fairly good. On hit, like it's a pretty good stance. But on block, you can just 2A it all the time, and there's nothing he can do about it. His punishment's not bad. His lethal hit game is his main strength, in my opinion. His lethal hits are awesome, and they're easy. They're easy to use. So that's great. His Oki is not the greatest, particularly if a Groh tries to be cheeky and end in stance Oki. Just stay on the ground, literally. The biggest thing that keeps Groh at all relevant is his Soul Charge. His Soul Charge is so irritating. The teleports are a straight gimmick. Like, the reason why I say it's a gimmick is because the game fights the counterplay. Let me explain. When Groh is teleporting, he has three primary options. That is the overhead spin, which is a vertical, the high horizontal break attack, which is duckable, and then the kick, which is a vertical mid as well. You can actually, in the lab, if you look at it, you can step duck every single one of these options every single time he teleports. Like, even if he goes psh, psh, you can still just step duck, step duck, step duck, step duck. It doesn't matter. But the game makes doing that a real pain in the ass, because when the camera flips, sometimes your character has to like turn around before they step, or sometimes when you go to do a step crouch block, you'll just crouch block, and so the game kind of battles with you when you try to counter it this way. But for that reason, it's very inconsistent and it's kind of gimmicky. The best part about his soul charge is definitely access to Black Gambit without spending the meter. Great move, in soul charge. Um, and then of course his 1AK, which is the low into the punch into. The thing is, I actually think that when he's in soul charge, because there's no real threats, I think that the 1A is fairly reactable if you're looking for it, and frankly, you kind of should be looking for it. I will say this though, the new extensions he gets off of some moves are quite nice, right? Like, gosh, I don't know the inputs, but the extensions that he gets that he doesn't have outside of Soul Charge are decent. But yeah, in general, I think his Soul Charge is a relative gimmick. But the character's kit outside of Soul Charge is just, he doesn't really have great single pokes. They're pretty lackluster, very, very weak. His lows are nothing to write home about at all. His mids aren't really that scary outside of the 3B, which is standard. His grab game is whatever. He's so ho-hum. He's not a garbage character. He's just not exciting. He's not strong. He's an okay kit, but it doesn't do anything, and it's quite punishable. Like, the risk reward is just not in Groh's favor. It's kind of the best way to put it. And he cannot compete in the neutral. He cannot compete up close. He cannot do keep away. So, like, he's just not really good at anything. He's okay at everything, not good at anything. So for that reason, I think he's pretty weak. Siegfried. So this is strictly a situation of power creep, okay? I don't think Siegfried is that weak. So I want to make that very clear. I don't think Siegfried is necessarily weak. I just think he's power crept. And in this particular case, this is because Nightmare exists. I don't see a world where, other than character loyalty or preference, why you pick Siegfried over Nightmare. Because Siegfried's stances are not that good. His combos are equally as good to Nightmare's. His Soul Charge is not as good as Nightmare's. Dark Legacy is the only time where Siegfried's a decent character, and even then, like, the biggest strength of Dark Legacy is obviously the lethal hits. And one way to do that is, of course, the mix-up inside reverse hold, where he always lunges forward at you, like 3 times and then goes low. You know the one. That low doesn't hit grounded. You can step duck the stance, or you can step and not block, and the vertical will whiff and the low won't lethal hit. It sucks. So the bubble is there, it's nice, but he's basically getting Dark Legacy for a one-time bubble. Ooh. You can RI it. That takes a bit of practice, but you can RI it, and if you block it, the chip damage has been reduced at one point in time, so it's not that great. Yeah, like, he's not awful. It's just, I don't see why you pick him over Nightmare right now. Like, it's really that simple. There's really not much more to it that I can say. Like, he's like a 5-move character too, which sucks. Like, you have AGA, which Nightmare has. You have A slide B. You have 3A4, 2-2A, and what? Like, his 3B and Wild Rising B, they're fairly good as they are tech crouching. But like, that's it, right? Siegfried he's okay, but Nightmare exists, and really I'll just kind of leave it there. Nightmare is a character. Why play Siegfried right now, in my opinion? And so Siegfried is not a garbage character. He is just one of the only power crept characters in the game, and so for that reason, he is down here. 2B. Oh my gosh. This is the one that's probably gonna, like, really piss people off. 2B is garbage. Like, I don't know what to tell you, dude. She is punishable on everything. Her neutral is so one-trick pony. Like, it's either 6-6A or nothing. Literally. A lot of her stuff is GIable or punishable or duckable or dodgeable. Like, this is the character. Let me just summarize it. 2B, similar to Maxi, but 2B has the most counterplay in the entire game. The most counterplay in the entire game. I promise you. I guarantee it. The amount of bullshit tech that I have, counter tech that I have found against this character is just baffling. Like, there are so many holes in this character's game plan, it's a joke. Like, it's a joke. She really thrives off of one key scenario, and that is AGS. Like, an AGS if you RE it, she has to fully commit to a super punishable option to beat it, and it won't even beat it necessarily all the time. And even then, with AGS, if you really want to be like, you know, a min-maxing asshole, if you buffer a back break behind your block, because it's quite tricky to break on reaction, in my opinion, and you look for the spear, anytime she does a spear attack, which is B or B hold, from AGS, you can GI it. Now, again, I'm not saying that's easy, but the fact that I can actually approach AGS with that simple-mindedness is super unfair to 2B, in my opinion. Her aerial leap is relatively gimmicky. The best move she has is A plus B. Yeah, every move is punishable on this character. It's ridiculous, actually. It's crazy. Like, if you have decent punishment at 12 or 14 frames, you're going to farm this character. Like, 2B, the reason she's down here is weak. She just has so many ways to counter her kit. It's baffling. It's a lot of lab work, but it's just crazy how much counterplay she has. And that's really it. Like, I can't even really address her strengths because, like, yeah, 3B hold is a great move, but, like, her soul charge is fairly good. That's it, dude. I'm telling you, this character is trash. If you think she's good, then, bro, it's kind of like Maxi. You just got to hit the lab or hit me up and I can teach you. Yeah, Geralt. So Geralt, this is a character, you know, so for those who don't know, I actually tried to pick up Geralt I tried very hard. I played him for a full, 2 weeks. I even played in 2 tournaments with him. Didn't even pick Xianghua. So I put in my hours into this character, and while I'm not saying the character being weak is why I lost or anything or whatever. I think he's really cool, actually. He's not as boring as I thought he was, but man, it's like he's too honest in this game. Like, there are other honest characters, but the thing is, he's not a powerful version of honest. The fact that he swings for 50 damage off of his 3B is a joke. Like, at 20 frame 3B. That's minus 14 to 50 damage with garbage Oki. Like, hello? The only time this character really shines is when you've whiffed against him and he lands 6 BB hold, or when he is lucky enough to land his anti-soul charge stuff. Now, the reason why I say lucky enough, and the reason why I had this character a bit higher in previous tier lists, is I thought that having somewhat anti-soul charge mechanics would be beneficial into making the game a bit more grounded and footsie or fundamental focused. This is just not true, and the reason why is Geralt's silver sword moves. Pretty sure every one of them is punishable, and if not all, like one of them. So even though you can still use them for low risk, you are still taking a risk. You are still eating free damage. And in some cases, in some soul charges, that's your health bar, right? It's not worth it. It's not worth using Geralt for the fact that he has anti-soul charge mechanics. Where he does shine, though, is the range of his pokes. The amount of distance this dude covers with, like, his 2B, Well Rising B, 5B, 5A, his 3A is really good. Like, is crazy, right? This dude swings so far, but that's it. Like, that is it. This character is the most bare bones character in Soul Calibur. He has a relatively well-rounded kit, but he has, like, no mix-ups. He has good range, but, like, it's not enough. Like, he just doesn't have enough substance to really be relevant. Like, I can list Geralt's strengths, and another character could just do all of them. Maybe in different ways, but they could do all of them. Like, I don't think there's a single matchup where it's like, I'm gonna pick Geralt here, right? Like, other than a preference, obviously. But on paper, I don't think Geralt, like, Geralt's never the pick. And whereas you can't say that about most of the other characters in the B tier, and so for that reason, I think Geralt's just weak. However, he is a great character if you don't want any bullshit. Like, if you just want to play Soul Calibur, like, if you want to just out-skill people and out-neutral people, he's a great choice for fun. But I'm sorry, I know there's a couple of Geralt mains who compete, but, like, dudes, you could do that with another character. I'm sorry, like this character, I want him to be better, but he's just not. Even though he's a solid pick, like I just said that he's never the pick into a matchup, but he also doesn't really struggle against that many characters. So that's probably one of his greatest things, is that like you can main Geralt and be like, all right, cool, I don't have to worry about anything. Like I can just keep doing the same thing. I can do the same game plan against every single character, and they all have to deal with it different ways. And I get to do me, man. That's what Geralt's all about. But I don't consider that necessarily a strength so much as it is a consistency feature. Great character for beginners to learn the fundamentals and how Soul Calibur works, because he's the kind of character who doesn't have a lot of noob traps. Like it's hard to come up with bad habits with this character, although there are some. But yeah, so he's just very underwhelming right now. But he has a couple of key things that keep him above the next character, which is Mitsurugi. So Mitsurugi, for a while I thought people were kind of like downplaying this character, like, oh my god, he can't catch step. But I began to realize and actually fight Mitsurugi's, and I labbed him a bit, I played him for a bit off stream, and I just, he's so underwhelming, frankly. Like kind of like other characters, he has a lot of counterplay. Like that's the thing in this game is you can learn the matchups, but you know, sometimes the counterplay is as simple as, oh, I can GI here, but that's it. Like that's the end of the story. Rugi, on the other hand, this dude's risk reward is crazy. Like if you block a 1KB, his ass is grass. If you block a 1BB, his ass is grass. If you block the transitions into stance, you can step duck. His ass is grass. Like, he's just so risky. But what keeps him relevant, and the reason why you maybe want to pick Rugi, is he's very explosive. Right? He hits hard. Right? He does great damage. He has an I-14 CE with good range and damage. His movement is fairly good. Like he is one of the better backsteps in the game. It's very snappy as well. So his neutral is pretty good, actually. The problem is his step catchers are cheeks. The range, the effective range of, I think the input's 2-2A, kind of the hilt smack, is so stubby. But that's a pretty good step catch. So stubby. 6-6A, not good. What is it? 4-4A? I think 4-4AB is a string. Or something, I can't remember now. But one of them you can GI. Oh no, 6AA, I'm sorry. 6AA is a GIable string, plus on block. And yeah, like he's very explosive though, right? He can hit like a truck in Soul Charge, but again, just the sheer risk of his lows outside of basically 2-2K, which even then is still pretty risky, is just way too high to really justify the pick. So you might as well go with a more consistent character who has like better offensive pressure, because that's the other thing. Rugi doesn't really have offensive pressure. His Oki is pretty good, but outside of Oki, he can't just like bum rush you down. His frames don't really allow for it, right? Kind of like Hwang in that respect. But he probably has some of the worst horizontals in the game right now. Like every character here has either like a fast one, or something that counter hits, or something that has a good range, or something that catches people. But Rugi doesn't really have any of that. His horizontals are bafflingly awful, other than his lows. Like, I'm not joking when I say Raph arguably has better horizontal. Like, you could probably argue that, but Raph having 4-4-AB, Rugi doesn't have anything like that. Like, so even Raph, like, Raph's 3A. You know, I would take that over Rugi's Horimits. So yeah, Rugi just needs some love. He's not... Like, he's so close to being a pretty solid character. That's the thing. It's just his one big weakness is easily exploitable, and that's what holds him back, right? That's the problem. But with like a little bit of love, like if they were to make, let me just throw something out there. If they were to make 6AA a jailing string and make it like -2 on block or something, oh, Rugi would be fine. Like, he would be fine. He'd be like around Kilik and Sophie. I don't know. Maybe Rugi players have better buff ideas, but you know, just for example, that would really bring him into the fold and be relevant. So yeah, he's one buff away from being a really solid character. So don't feel bad about playing Ryu. Just understand that players will be able to step your ass all game long. And last, we have Voldo. So Voldo, you know, it's kind of tragic because Voldo is actually a lot of fun to play. He's very interesting to watch. Very annoying to fight, I'll admit. But he just lacks in every way. Like, this is the weakest character in Soul Calibur. That's the problem. He does have some unique things, but Mantis just lost its mix. You can step it and react to the 4A or the A. His soul charge is it's very one-trick pony. All he looks to do is blind stance 8-8A, which is the break attack, or he does fish into pressure. That's it though. His 4K is probably one of his best. Well, it is one of his best moves. It's a tech crouching launcher. It's really good. Leads to garbage damage though. And his demonic elbow lethal hit, which is 666B, that's pretty good. But it's like you had to buffer a 666B for a lethal hit whiff punish when so many other characters could just like 3B or like 6-6B or 4-4B. Why do you have to make it difficult for even less reward, by the way? His blind stance, like if Voldo could remain in blind stance, he would be a better character. But the fact that as soon as he blocks a move, for the most part, he's just swap back to forward, and now he's kind of a garbage character. Because forward, while it has more range, it doesn't have the speed or the threat to really make up what you're missing in blind stance. Blind stance only has really two ways to catch step, and that's 5A and 2A, I think. But it's fast, right? It has good moves. It has great evasive options, tech crouches, tech jumps. His CE from blind stance is super fast. Like it's a solid character, but the forward stance is not that good. He has 6-6A, which is a reactable Hori mid. It is +2 on block into Mantis, but it's reactables. You can GI it, auto GI it, etc. His 2-2A and 1K are probably his best buttons in front facing, 1K being a very stretchy leg low. I believe it's -12 or -14. I think it's -12. And 2-2A being a great horizontal mid, but it's slow. But for what it does, it's pretty good. Yeah, he's just lacking. He's so weak. The thing is, Voldo lost his identity because at one point in time he was like the Oki monster, like the Oki monster. Like every time Voldo hit you and put you in a situation, you were like, oh shit, here we go again. But they took that away from him, and they buffed up his neutral a little bit, which is good. But like, why'd you take away the one key strength of the character, right? So Voldo just needs, kind of like Mitsurugi, like a little bit of buffs could go a really long way for this character. Whereas, just to give you an example, in order to make Siegfried relevant compared to Nightmare, I think they'd have to nerf Nightmare. In order to bring 2B up into the fold, they would need to make this character have way less counterplay. Like, be safer, give her safer options, or don't let, reversal edge cover as much as it does, etc., etc. The list goes on. And then for Groh, kind of the same thing with Rugi and Voldo. Like, they just need to buff up this dude's reward for what he has to go through, and the risk he has to take. So, anyway, there you have it. That's my, probably final season 2 tier list. I'm very confident in all of these placements. If you disagree, let's have a conversation about it. Please know how much work I put into these, and I appreciate all of you who watch these things. I really do. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you thought, and yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Let's hope for a season 3. Have a lovely rest of your day.